What's up, everybody? Back for another Honkai Star Rail video, and I've made a lot of should you summon videos, but one thing I haven't done is a overall who you should save for or who you should summon for, especially for newer players. Now, the reason I had an idea to make this video is because I started getting bored of the gacha games I had on my phone. Right, a lot of them are either not as fun to me anymore, or some of them I'm just not that great in, right? So the game's like a little bit harder to enjoy just because every time I play it, more so for like the PvP style games, right? But I ended up downloading a new gacha game, and the first thing I thought of was, okay, what characters should I be summoning for? Should I be saving? And there's not really a video on that. Now, to be fair, it's more of a niche gacha game, right? As cool animations, definitely more on the like Nikkei side of things, I will say. So yeah, there's that. But gameplay was cool, and I didn't really know who I should be summoning for, so I kind of just went with like the best teams in the game, and then went from there. Like, okay, I should probably grab these characters. Don't know if I'm supposed to like go for like whatever, or like they need to be this or whatnot. But I mean, hey, it's a start, and I realized probably should start doing this for Star Rail so newer players have a better idea instead of like, oh, I need to watch a Yunli video, I need to watch this video. So let's jump into it. So we have must pull, which I think every player should go for these characters, or at least go for one of these characters of their respective jobs, right? Then there's meta high value. These are meta units who will have longer value or are very good to have on an account for a later date. Meta lower value or meta units that will probably end up falling off sooner than later. Then we have good characters, skips, and then 4 stars. Now I'm going to start off with the 4 stars. These 4 stars are extremely good. If you see them on a banner, I recommend you go ahead and summon for them. Now, the only reason I have these 4 here is because Pela is extremely strong debuffer. Tingyun is a very good support that gives energy. Gallagher is a great sustain unit that helps with break teams. And then Jue is a very strong DPS. I would have Lynx here, but I find Lynx not as good as she should be. But she'll get like an honorable mention, I guess, right? So I guess we'll put her here for a second. But overall, I'm not a huge fan of Lynx. That's why I'm not going to have her on here. The other 4 stars are really good, but these are the main 4 that always stick out to me, especially these 3 right here. If you see them on a banner, definitely want to go for dupes of them. They're very strong. I use them pretty much every single day that I play Star Rail. Then let's start up with the one and only skip, and that is Argenti. Argenti, while it is true you can get just about any character in this game to cook or beat content, Argenti's probably going to be the one with least value. He's really good in one game mode and struggles in other ones, and there's characters who do his job just better than him, so he's going to be in skip. Unless you really like Argenti, I recommend just not summoning, right? Then we're going to jump up to the must pull, just because there's only one character that I have in full on skip. These characters are the best of the best, and technically speaking, you should be grabbing all of them just to have them in your back pocket. But for some of these, you are okay with only grabbing one. Let me go ahead and put them all up, and then I will explain their roles. I will put them together in groupings of 2. That way you have a better idea of why they're up here. Last one is right here. So these 6 characters, we have 2 DPSs in Acheron and Firefly, 2 supports, Sparkle and Ronmei, and 2 sustains, Ventrine and Fushuan. Now, you should have at least one of these groups of 2, or sorry, you should have one character from each group, is what I meant to say. Sorry, one must pull DPS, one must pull support, one must pull sustain. Right? Most of the time in Star Rail, you're going to be using 2 teams to clear it, meaning you're going to need 8 units altogether. And while you can cook with some 4 stars or maybe some spare 5 stars that aren't like insanely good, having at least one team like super dominate, or having a amazing sustain or amazing support or amazing DPS paired with some of the lower tier units can definitely help around, especially because pretty much every single endgame mode in Honkai Star Rail is a race against the clock. You have to clear in a certain amount of turns, you have to clear in a certain amount of actions, you have to get a certain amount of points before the couple turns end. It's pretty much nothing to do with how long can you stay alive until you beat the boss, which does bother me a bit. I do wish there was a, if you survive and win, you get max rewards, in a sense, kind of like a how much HP can you take off the boss type game mode. But unfortunately, we don't, so you really have to make sure that your teams are clearing in a good amount of time. With Acheron and Firefly, they hit really hard, so that'll help. With these two supports, they're giving support to, boosting damage, so they help with that. And then these are the two best sustains. So Acheron, how she works is you want to run her with debuff units, Nihility units. So if you like Nihility units and you want to summon for them, right? She's probably the one you want to go for. Firefly is for break teams. Firefly actually has a pretty free-to-play team because you run her with Gallagher, the Harmony MC, which is going to be this one right here, and Ruan Mei, which I know 2 units are premium, but having 2 free units on the team is pretty damn nice compared to most other characters. Then Adventuring and Fushuan can pretty much be ran on just about any team besides break. And, Adventuring boosts crit damage, Fushuan boosts crit rate, Fushuan absorbs damage to herself, Adventuring grants shield, both very good sustains. Having at least one of these two is pretty much like, if I had to make another tier, these guys would be on their own tier above it, because having a sustain, high tier sustain, is probably the most important thing in the game. Now let's go over meta high value units. These units are very good and in the meta, and they are going to be giving something to the team that is either hard to find or maybe not so good on other characters or whatever it may be, right? Now these are the characters I'm going to put in meta high value, and that is because Silverwolf, while there are 3 characters overall, so Silverwolf, Firefly, and this guy Boot Hill right here, can implant a weakness. Now in Star Rail, all enemies have a toughness bar. When you break it, they cannot act until they recover. If you're using the Harmony MC, he can apply Super Break, which makes you do more damage. And it's overall a great feature, which can stop you from dying. If the enemies don't do a big attack and you break them, it'll cause them to stop that attack and go down the action list, so you can attack a bunch more, maybe get some kills. So very good mechanic, right? Now what Silverwolf does is she will randomly give the enemy a weakness of a character on your team. If they're already weak to everybody on your team except for one type, she'll just 100% be implanting that type to the enemy. Plus she lowers the enemy's defense, which is a very, very strong thing to do for characters. Trust me, defense shred is no joke in this game. Silverwolf is honestly a very strong character. Unfortunately, she is single target, which does hurt because a lot of this game is centered around AoEs, but she still gets the job done, and we haven't gotten a single character that does what she does yet to the T. There are other characters who lower defense, like Pela is like a mini version of Silverwolf, but people say she's better because she does AoE, but no one does the implant weakness quite like Silverwolf. Firefly and Boot Hill do for their typings only, but no one does multiple typings like Silverwolf. So I think she is a high value unit that I don't think is a bad pull, just because she has a support that no one else has. Now Robin, the only reason she's not must pull is because she gives damage, does some damage, and then fully action advances the whole team, which is very strong. However, Sparkle, right? I don't know if I forgot to mention this, boosts the action advance of a character by 50%, right? And then Bronya, one of the standard banner characters, does it by 100% for one character. Robin does the whole team, but the fact that other characters already have action advance does hurt Robin a little bit, because she can be replaced by Bronya if you only need the DPS or one set character to action advance. If you have Sparkle and her action advance is enough for you, you're good to go, because Sparkle also gives you more skill points, which, if you don't know, skill points are used to use skills. If you have no skill points, you can't use a skill. And she doesn't provide a buff that no one else does, like Ruan Mei, who gives break efficiency to the whole team, which is absolutely absurd, by the way. Ruan Mei is so good. So Robin is unfortunately going to be in a meta high value, even though a lot of tier lists will probably put all 3 of these characters around the same tier. At least maybe Sparkle and Robin on the same tier, but I'm going to have her in high value. She's very good, but her buffs can be replicated by other characters. Not as well, but you can make do with other characters. Ruan Mei, you can't really make do, because nobody else does what she does. That's why she is a must pull. Then we have Kafka, who is a dot enabler. Now, she is the only character to do this, but it's not so insane that it breaks the game, because she's not really the toppest tier DPS, or she's not on the toppest tier support. which is unfortunate. We pretty much need more dot characters for her to go up again. But once we get an absurdly broken dot unit, her value is going to shoot up yet again. I don't think she's a must pull, but getting her is pretty good value for your account. I'm going to talk about Ho-Ho really fast before we get to Yunli, right? Ho-Ho is a healer who also gives energy on her ult. Now, the only other character to give energy is Ting Yun. Now, Ho-Ho doesn't give nearly enough compared to Ting Yun, but it's still a little bit. Plus, she gives an attack buff, kind of like Ting Yun does, and then she is a sustain, so she's able to heal you. That is very strong. She's not a must pull because realistically, enemies are hitting pretty damn hard to the point where you might just sort of die from getting one shot if a unit gets focused too much, and that is why I value Fu Xuan Adventuring, because if a unit is getting bullied, Adventuring has a shield up, you're good to go, right? The damage gets taken on the shield before using HP, and then Fu Xuan reduces damage and then takes some of that damage for herself, and then she can heal herself. With Ho-Ho, very strong heals, almost heals a full pretty much every single time, but if the enemy decides she wants to kill, or sorry, decides that they want to kill someone, Ho-Ho, she can't heal them in time and they end up dying. But that is a rare case. It's just, you know, bad RNG, but I am going to knock her down a bit because of that. But overall, her kit's still very good. Then we have Yunli, who is a very strong character because not only can Yunli taunt characters, she can heal with her skill. Very good damage since she is a counter unit. Only Venturing I wouldn't really count as a counter unit, right? I don't think it even specifies, yep, that's a word, I can English, that Venturing is a counter. It's her and Clara, and Yunli is just a very good version of Clara. I think she'll age rather well because her counter is also a follow-up attack, and follow-up attacks seem to be on the rise for Star Rail at the moment. So I think she is in a good spot to where if you pull her, you will have very, very good value out of that pull. Then we're going to go to meta low value, which we're going to put pretty much the remainder of the 5 stars here. Now, I believe that is going to be everybody. Okay, so few things first. Let's go to the DPSs. These are going to be the 4 DPSs of this tier, and that's pretty much why they're in this tier, right? The only DPSs that are in must pull and meta high value are Yunli, Robin, or sorry, not Robin, Firefly, Acheron, and technically Kafka is kind of a DPS. Silver is also kind of a DPS because you can build them like that, but it's really just Kafka, Yunli, Firefly, and Acheron. The reason for that is because Acheron and Firefly have kind of jumped a bit in tiers compared to the other characters. Not saying they can't compete, but if you were to bring Acheron or one of these DPSs, most of the time you're going to bring Acheron just because she's a bit better. Obviously, team comp matters, but if you have everybody's perfect team and someone says, I'll give you $50 if you clear this faster than me, you're bringing the Acheron team, right? Like, that's just how it is. They're still very strong DPSs. However, since they are a DPS and don't do terribly much more than that, that's why they can easily be replaced. You know, this character right here is a Fire Nihility character, and from the looks of his kit from the live stream, he's going to be a support. But let's just say, for the sake of the argument, he's the new DPS, right? The new DPSs are most likely going to be either meta high value or a must pull. That is one more DPS that you should rather get than these characters. And over a while, let's just say, like, oh, this is the next DPS, this is the next good DPS, this is the next good DPS. Eventually, it's going to be like, okay, well, this one's lower now, this one's lower now. And then eventually, it's going to be like, all right, this one's lower now. And then these guys get knocked down, and eventually, their damage compared to these newer DPSs is just not going to look as good. And that's why they are meta, because they're still good, but they're on their lower value because they are already not on the same tier as other DPSs, such as like these two up here. And it'll probably only get worse, right? Like I said, not saying they're bad. Ratio is extremely good, but, you know, we already have DPSs that are better. Like I said, it's only going to get worse for them. But as of right now, they are still good pulls. Boot Hill is kind of on a similar slope because he's a break DPS. Same thing with Firefly. However, he is Hunt. I would have him on meta high value, but the fact that he is a Hunt character can hurt him a bit because this game really likes you to use AoEs. He's pretty much useless in one endgame, which is Pure Fiction, because it's AoE based. MOC in Apocalypse Shadow, he absolutely shreds. But if I were going to recommend a new player to summon for Boot Hill or Firefly, I'm definitely going to recommend Firefly. He's still a great unit, but since we got a character who implants weakness and does break damage, and they're AoE and they're already very, very good, I feel like Boot Hill didn't get too much time to shine because he got completely overshadowed by a unit who kind of stole his flow. Not saying he's bad, but like I said before, would you rather have a good character or a god tier character, you know? Then we have Topaz and Black Swan. Now, the reason these characters are in low value, Black Swan is used on Akron teams or dot teams. Dot teams are kind of on the decline, right? I know people still use them, but they're not like, you know, if I think of a top tier team, I'm not going to say Kafka and Black Swan, right? Also, let's remove this guy. Just realize he's still there. Black Swan can also be used with Acheron. I use her with Acheron, but other than that, she's not really dominating too much. It's not like she's on the best teams. She's kind of like in a niche right now. And I think Kafka's better of the two dot units because Kafka just enables more than Black Swan does. So Black Swan is going to be on a lower tier. Not saying you can't cook with her, but you know, she's not offering as much as other characters, so I don't want to put her too high. Then for Topaz, very strong character. Like I said before, follow-up attacks seem to be on the rise. They really like follow-up attack units. And Topaz is a follow-up attack support. So why is she not higher? Well, that is because she requires her light cone, which is already very unfortunate. Also, a lot of people say that you're going to need her E1, which is dupes. And I want to look at this as you're only getting the base character and not dupes. Well, most characters pretty much function the exact same at E0 than they are with the first couple dupes. Obviously, there's exceptions, like I think Silverwolf can turn into a full-on DPS. Jinglu has some better single target damage. Don Hang, I forgot what he does. I think it's for skill points since Don Hang is a skill-hungry fiend. Acheron needs one less Nihility character on the team. Firefly skill points. They're all really good. Most important, what I've heard, because I don't actually have Topaz myself, is you pretty much need the E1 S1 to make her a staple follow-up support unit. And the fact that you need to put so many resources into her, I feel like it bumps her down to her lower value just because you have to invest so much in her. And the average player is not going to be like, okay, you like this character, all right, well, summon her twice and then get her light cone. That's like, whoa, you know, like there's not any more free-to-play options. Plus, since there's so many follow-up attack characters coming out, I wouldn't be surprised if we got a Topaz version 2 or maybe a 4-star version of Topaz. So I'm going to put her on the lower tier because of that. Same can be said for Ruin May with the break efficiency stuff, but being a support for follow-up could mean a lot of things, such as like defense shred, doing follow-up attack damage increase, like Robin increases follow-up attack damage, right? They can have a lot of things that could make them a follow-up attack unit, but compared to someone like Ruin May, who's just, if you don't got break efficiency, you're not Ruin May, it's a little bit harder to replicate. So like I said, that's why Topaz is on the lower value. Then we have Good. These are the characters who aren't bad, and if you like their character, you can definitely summon for them, but they aren't anything crazy. They have a few issues, and that is Luocha is a great healer, but all he does is remove buffs and heal, comparing to Ho-Ho, who gives energy and attack, and then Venturine, who gives crit damage and very beefy shields that make you hard to die, or Fushuan, who can heal herself, heal the team a little bit, gives crit rate. You gotta give a little bit more than just healing to be very good, so that's why Luocha's down here. Obviously, a lot of people still use Luocha, but, you know, if he's not giving buffs to the team, you're kind of getting knocked down a peg for a sustain. Sorry, Luocha. Then we have Jade. Jade is one of the newer characters, absolutely dominates. I almost said Pure Fiction. Wait, it is Pure Fiction. Duh. I was like, oh yeah, an MOC. No. Pure Fiction. She is pretty damn good. AoEs are her thing. She buffs units. She's mostly on the follow-up attack teams. She's also used with units like Blade. Very strong unit, but she does struggle with single target stuff. And from what I've seen, she isn't too crazy, so I can't really recommend pulling for her personally. Plus, I believe she's another character where dupes help her out a bunch, so she's going to get knocked down for that. Nothing too crazy, and besides, if you're going to go for a pure Fiction unit, a lot of these characters up here can do a bit better than her. So she's getting knocked down. Seele, very strong unit. She is the first premium unit that came out in the game when the game launched. Still a very good DPS, but you know, time will age you. There's better DPSs. She's getting knocked down, right? Same with Jing Yun. He's even a worse DPS than Seele at the moment, mostly because Lightning Lord, his cool mechanic, only activates once per turn, and you have to build it up a bunch, and the damage is nothing to write home about. You're better off just using any of the higher tier DPSs instead, right? And then there's Blade. I'd say Blade is kind of the beta or prototype of Yun Li, in the fact that he's kind of a solo sustain unit you could slap on a team and he could cook back in the day. And now we just have a better version who does more damage in Yun Li, right? Pretty much with Blade, the less HP you get, you know, it does more damage. If you get hit or lower your HP, he gets stacks for a follow-up attack. His ultimate, you know, is AoE based. He's not a bad character, but he's sort of just aged a bit in the damage department, and he's not as useful as just slapping on a team as before, just because we have so many options. Before, it's like we have a DPS, a support, and then you have your sustain, and there wasn't really a lot of synergy. Now it's like, okay, you run this sustain because they do this, you run this support because they do this, and everyone kind of falls into place on having a good synergy or good value with another teammate. And before, it was kind of just like, I have them because they heal, I have this character because they boost my damage, and then Blade can kind of just like be shoved in there, and it just works out for him, right? You could probably still do the same nowadays, but you know, older unit, damage isn't quite there anymore. It's just how it is with gacha games. You know, units age is what it is, right? But overall, this is going to be the who you should summon for tier list. Let me know if you have any comments, concerns, all that stuff, any questions. I'll try to help you out. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh my god, how is Robin not in must pull? Or why is Ratio in lower value and not higher value? Or maybe like Topaz or Black Swan and all that. Yeah, I understand. Also, another thing with Ratio is he was actually free at some point. So a lot of people are going to be like, oh, why is Ratio on the list? I believe he should be getting a rerun soon, which will be very interesting to see his sales, since he was free before, and I feel like most players have him. But if you don't, you know, that's just why he's on the list. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in the next Honkai Star Rail video.